Unreliable used to mean cheap. Not one car on this list is cheap. Most of them sticker for more than a lot of people paid for their first house. Consumer Reports just finished going through owner data on roughly 380,000 vehicles, and they published the 10 worst of 2026 for reliability. Read that list the way the magazine intends it, and it's a shopping guide. Read it the way I do, after enough years watching what actually rolls into a shop, and it's something else entirely. It's a receipt. It's proof that the money went into screens and battery packs and drive modes, and it did not go into the parts that decide whether a car is still running at 200,000 miles. 9 of these 10 are electric, plug-in, or freshly redesigned. That is not a coincidence, and Consumer Reports' own testing director said it out loud. The aggressive redesigns and the rush to new technology are exactly what's breaking these vehicles. The one sitting at number 1 is going to surprise you. It has no battery pack. It doesn't plug in, and there are more of them parked in American driveways than anything else on this list. Stay with me to the end, and you'll understand exactly why the paid-off car sitting outside your house right now is the smartest thing you own. Number 10. The Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid. We start with a minivan, and the trouble here isn't trim rattles or a squeaky brake. Owners reported problems with the major transmission components and the major engine components. Those are the two most expensive assemblies in the vehicle, and they're the two Consumer Reports weighs the heaviest. On top of that, the plug-in hybrid system brought its own failures, including trouble keeping the battery cool. And the in-car electronics have a habit of freezing or going black entirely. Here's what Chrysler won't put in the brochure. The plug-in version doesn't replace the old powertrain. It bolts a second one on top of it. So you've got a transmission that already had a reputation, and now it's sharing a driveline with a high-voltage battery, an electric motor, and a cooling circuit that has to keep that battery from cooking itself in July. 2 complete powertrains. 2 complete sets of things that break. 1 warranty clock covering both of them. Consumer Reports scored this van a 26 out of 100 for predicted reliability. That's not a car having a rough year. That's a design problem. If you already own one, the single most useful thing you can do is stop treating the hybrid cooling system as sealed and forgotten. Have the coolant loop inspected and serviced on schedule, because heat is what kills these packs. And a pack replacement outside warranty runs somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000 to $9,000 depending on your region and whether the dealer will touch it. That's the cheap end of this list. The next one costs more than double that when it fails, and it wears a badge you've trusted your whole life. Number 9. The Honda Prologue. Honda built its entire reputation on engines that would not quit. This is not that. Owners of this electric SUV reported EV battery failures serious enough that the pack sometimes needed complete replacement, not a module, not a repair, the whole thing. They also reported charging problems, climate system failures, drive system faults, dead electrical accessories, and screens that freeze while you're driving. Here's the part most Honda owners don't know, and it changes how you read that badge. The Prologue isn't really a Honda underneath. It was built on General Motors' Ultium platform, assembled by GM, and Honda put its name on the front of it. Understand what that means mechanically. An electric drivetrain isn't a set of parts you can rebuild on a bench the way you'd go through a 4-cylinder. The battery pack is a structural, sealed, liquid-cooled assembly with hundreds of cells wired in series. When enough of those cells drift out of balance, or the cooling plate fails, or the management module loses track of what's happening inside, there is no valve job and there is no reman. There is a new pack, and it's the most expensive single component ever fitted to a mass-market vehicle. Out of warranty, that's $15,000 to $20,000, which on a used one is more than the vehicle is worth. There's no maintenance habit that saves you from this. That's the whole point. The only real protection is knowing the warranty terms on the pack before you're standing at the counter finding out. The next one fails in a way you've never had to think about, and it can leave you stranded in a parking lot with a fully charged battery. Number 8. The Kia EV6. Owners here reported problems with the EV battery, the electric motor, the brakes, the body hardware, and the charging system. That charging system is where the pattern lives. The component is called the Integrated Charging Control Unit. On the EV6 and the platform it shares with several other Hyundai and Kia models. That unit has been a recurring, well-documented failure point, enough that it's generated recall and service bulletin activity across the family. Here's what that part actually does, because the name hides it. It doesn't just handle charging from the wall. It's also what keeps the small 12-volt battery topped up. The same little battery that runs your lights, your locks, your computers, and the contactors that let the big pack send power to the wheels. So when that unit quits, the 12-volt slowly drains and the car shuts down. You can be sitting there with a main battery at 80% and a vehicle that will not move, will not wake up, and will not tell you why. I've seen the same script play out on gas cars for 40 years with alternators. The difference is you could hear an alternator going. This one gives you a warning light and then nothing. Replacement runs roughly $1,500 to $2,500 once you're outside coverage, and the tow is on you. At least that one strands you in a parking lot. The next one on this list took the pack apart, cell by cell, and left owners waiting weeks while a dealer figured out which ones to replace. Number 7. The Kia EV9. This is the big 3-row electric SUV, the one marketed to families who used to buy a Pilot or a Highlander. Owners reported battery trouble, where individual cells inside the pack had to be replaced, along with charging problems, body hardware faults, dead electrical accessories, and in-car electronics acting up. That phrase, specific cells replaced, tells you more about the ownership experience than any score does. A pack this size isn't one battery. It's a crate of modules, and each module is a stack of cells, and the whole assembly only performs as well as its weakest group. So when a handful of cells degrade, the pack doesn't fail all at once. It sits there working badly, and somebody has to open a high-voltage assembly, isolate the bad group, and match new cells to the state of the ones staying in. That's not a job most dealers are staffed to do quickly, which is why the wait is measured in weeks rather than days. A module-level repair runs roughly $3,000 to $5,500 out of warranty, and the vehicle sits the entire time. You cannot rotate this. You cannot flush it. There is no service interval that prevents it. Everything so far has been electric, and it would be easy to walk away thinking the problem is just batteries. The next one runs on gasoline, has a proper 6-cylinder engine, and still landed on this list. Number 6, the Mazda CX-90, no plug, no battery pack. A brand with a reputation for building simple cars that ran forever. Owners reported trouble in the major engine components and the major transmission, plus steering problems, brake issues, and electrical accessories like the keyless entry giving up. Here's the comparison that matters, and it's the whole story of the last 15 years of car building. Think about the Mazda that came before this, a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder with a conventional automatic behind it, sold by the hundreds of thousands, and you still see them running errands with 250,000 miles on the clock. Same company, same badge, same paint colors. The difference is that the old one was asked to do one thing well, and this one was asked to be a luxury car. Turbocharged inline-6, mild hybrid assist, a brand new 8-speed with a clutch pack in place of a torque converter, all launched at once in a fresh platform. Every one of those was a reach for a segment Mazda hadn't competed in, and reaching is exactly what breaks cars. A transmission failure on one of these lands somewhere between $5,000 and $7,500 depending on your area and who does the work. Do something for me right now. Walk out to your car and check whether it still has a transmission dipstick. If it does, you own something most of these 10 don't. A way to look at the fluid that decides whether the most expensive assembly in your car lives or dies. And tell me in the comments what the highest mileage is you've ever put on one vehicle. I want to see what this audience is actually driving, because I promise you it's not on this list. Mazda's problem took a few years to show up in the data. The next one hit owners while the vehicle was still nearly new. Number 5, the Genesis GV60. This is Hyundai's luxury division, and the price of entry reflects it. Owners reported EV battery trouble and trim pieces working loose around the windshield, the kind of detail that tells you the assembly standards didn't match the sticker. One owner's account of the battery is worth sitting with. A warning came up on the dash. They took it straight to the dealership like anyone would, and then they waited. Weeks later, Genesis came back with the answer that the drive battery needed replacing. So let me put the question to you directly. If that dashboard light came on in your car tomorrow, could you absorb it? Not the inconvenience, the number. Because a high-voltage pack on a luxury EV outside of warranty is a $20,000 to $28,000 proposition, and there is no independent shop down the road offering you a cheaper way through it. Here's what I want you to actually do before your next vehicle purchase, whenever that is. Take 5 minutes, get on your phone, and look up what a replacement battery pack costs for whatever you're considering. Not the lease payment, the pack. That one number has talked more people out of a bad decision than any review ever written. If this is the kind of straight math nobody at the dealership walks you through, subscribe. This channel exists to put the real number in front of you before somebody else gets to decide it for you. Because the next one on this list is cheaper to fix than the one you just heard about, and somehow it's the one that would make me angriest as an owner. Number 4, the Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid. You heard right. Same vehicle as number 6, appearing on this list a second time in plug-in form, ranked worse. Owners reported battery malfunctions, electric motor trouble, faults in both the major and the minor transmission, and problems through the drive system, brakes, steering, and suspension. That is not a weak point. That's a spread across nearly every system the car has. And one owner's experience shows you exactly what a first-year system looks like from the driver's seat. Within a week of buying it, the car died on them with a battery leakage warning. It was towed in, and Mazda kept it for 31 days while new software was written to address the fault. Sit with that. The repair wasn't a part. The repair was a software update that did not exist yet when they sold the car. Mechanically, this is the same story as the Pacifica at number 10, and it's the story of this entire list. Take a powertrain that was already brand new and unproven, then layer a high-voltage system on top of it before anyone has finished learning the first one. The drive system faults themselves are often in the $900 to $1,800 range once you're paying, the sort of bill that feels almost reasonable until you remember the car was 3 weeks old. The last three are the worst on the list, and the one at the top still doesn't plug into anything. Number 3, the Chevrolet Blazer EV. Owners reported battery malfunctions and cooling failures, significant climate system problems, repeated 12-volt battery failures, and displays that freeze or go black without warning. The 12-volt failures are the pattern I'd point to because they keep surfacing across this whole generation of electric vehicles, regardless of badge. Every one of these cars still has a small conventional battery buried in it, doing the same job it did in 1985. Running the computers, the locks, the lights, and the circuits that let the big pack do anything at all. The engineering went into the 800-volt side. The 12-volt side got treated as an afterthought, and it's the afterthought that leaves people standing in a driveway. Replacing one, with the diagnostic time to find out why it kept dying, runs about $400 to $900. That's the smallest number in this entire video, on a vehicle that stickers well past 50,000. Keep in mind what's still waiting at number 1, no pack, no plug, and more of them on the road than anything else you've heard so far. Number 2, the Rivian R1T. Consumer Reports named Rivian the least reliable brand in the survey, and this truck the least reliable electric vehicle in it. Owners reported major trouble with the battery and the electric motor, along with climate system faults, steering and suspension problems, and body hardware failures, including the motors that operate the electric door handles giving out. One owner brought the truck in for recall work and was told during that visit that the drivetrain was failing and would need to be replaced. So answer this honestly for yourself. When the handle that opens your own door has a motor in it, and that motor is a documented failure point, what problem was that design solving? Not durability, not repairability, not cost. It was solving for the way the truck looks in a commercial. That's the through line of all 10 of these vehicles. Complexity added for the showroom, paid for in the service bay by whoever owns it in year 6. Body and door electrical work on one of these runs roughly $1,200 to $2,200, and there is no aftermarket to rescue you. Which brings us to number 1, no battery pack, no plug. A gas engine, a conventional transmission, 3 rows of seats, and a nameplate that has been sold in this country for nearly 20 years. Number 1, the GMC Acadia. Consumer Reports logged more reported problems on this vehicle than on anything else in the survey. Not the Rivian, not the Blazer EV, not the luxury Genesis with the $28,000 battery, a family SUV. Owners reported trouble across the major and minor transmission components, including fluid leaking out of it, plus brake problems, failing electrical accessories, and in-car electronics giving up. And one owner's account should stop anyone who thinks a gas engine is automatically the safe bet. At around 3,500 miles, the engine lost oil pressure on the highway. There were no visible signs of a leak beforehand. The vehicle was towed to an out-of-state dealer, and General Motors ended up replacing the engine under warranty. 3,500 miles. That's a car that had barely finished its first oil change. Here's why this is number 1, and not the Rivian. Nobody's grandmother is buying an electric pickup, but an Acadia is the vehicle a family buys when they're deliberately trying to be sensible, when they've decided against the EV, against the plug-in, against the experiment, and they want 3 rows and a gas engine like they've always had. They did everything right by the old rules, and the old rules stopped applying because the transmission and the electronics in this thing are as new and as untested as anything with a battery in it. A transmission repair here lands somewhere around $4,000 to $6,500 depending on where you live and whether you go dealer or independent. And that's the real lesson sitting under all 10 of these. The thing that made cars last was never the fuel they burned. It was years of the same engineering, refined slowly, until the failures were known and cheap to fix. Every vehicle on this list traded that away for something new. The car in your driveway that's paid for, that you know the sounds of, that has a dipstick and a spare tire, and a transmission somebody in your town can actually rebuild. That car isn't behind the times. It's the last of the ones built to be kept. Now, the single most damaging thing the manufacturers bolted onto that car of yours is the auto start-stop system, and there are real ways to shut it off permanently. That video is on the screen right now, and it's the one this audience has been asking me for. Go watch it and stop letting somebody else decide how long your car lasts.